Hold on. Yeah, that's good.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Coventry Technical Review Committee to order. It is Monday, September 16th at 1:34 p.m. And we'll go through the agenda. First item on the agenda is a determination of a quorum. There is a quorum present, and just for purposes of who are the TRC voting members, we'll go around the table. I'm Doug McLean. I am the Planning Director, Administrative Officer, and the Chair of the TRC.
Chief Heiss, Coventry, please. Joe Levesque, Engineering. Alex Berardo, Principal Planner.
Chief Brown, Fire.
Josh Chase, Planning Tech.
Great, and we do have a quorum of the TRC present. Next order is an emergency evacuation plan. In the case of an emergency, we're going to head out that door and head right out the building. Next item is approval of minutes. We do have two sets of minutes. This is the only thing that the TRC actually takes a vote on. It's just the approval of our own minutes. Why don't we do them in order? First, the August 19th minutes. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a correction under the fire representative.
Sure.
Says the project needs to meet MFPA airflow.
Which project is this under?
Second page, it's under Westwood Stairs.
Okay.
So would you mind me marking that one down?
No, I don't.
So it says airflow, it's supposed to be fire flow.
Yeah. Got it. I found it.
Okay.
Good catch. Thank you very much, Chief. Any other comments, questions on these minutes for August 19th? All right, so I have a motion from Chief Brown to approve as amended. A second on that.
I'll second it.
Second by Engineer Levesque. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. Next, we'll address the July 15th, 2024 minutes. Any questions, comments on these minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion? All right, motion by Chief Brown to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second by Engineer Levesque. All in favor of approving these minutes as drafted, say aye.
Aye.
All right, those minutes are approved. Moving on to new business. You can feel free to join us at the table as well, Mr. Landry. Thanks. We're just coming to your item.
Oh, thanks. I'm sorry, I went over to the town hall.
That's no problem.
That's what I did.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone on their toes in terms of, but actually it's important to note so that everyone knows, for public interest, the meeting on the 25th will be at the high school, Coventry High School, in the auditorium. So the item number 4 on our agenda, 4.1, Coventry Crossings. This is for comments to the Planning Commission. This is a preliminary planned comprehensive permit application. As a brief description, the applicant is proposing 60 single-unit condominium residences and 30 two-unit duplex buildings, providing a total of 120 residential units. The project as a comprehensive permit will have 25% of the units as deed restricted low and moderate income. The proposal includes associated utilities, infrastructure, and landscaping. This application also proposes a 12,500 square foot commercial structure. So that is background. I know that the TRC members have considered comments on this, although it may seem tedious. I would ask the TRC members to read the comments that they have. They've already been considering in full, just for the purpose of the record. And why don't we start over here, Josh? I know you created comments on behalf of the principal planner slot on the TRC. Why don't you read yours, please?
Sure. Planning's comments on Coventry Crossings are a request the applicant provide conceptual elevations of the proposed commercial building from all the sides prior to public hearing. Request applicant submit a narrative prior to public hearing, describe the status of state permit submissions to date, as well as any preliminary determinations, discussions, or consensus reached with the state on permits such as RIDOT PAP, RIDEM OWTS, RIDEM wetlands, and RIDEM stormwater. This comment is intended to provide the town with evidence that state permits can be achieved without design changes to the immediate town application. Request to add an additional pedestrian pathway from the northern elbow of Road C to the outlet on Wisteria Drive. Seeking clarification on the applicant's approach for trash collection. Seeking clarification on the status of the significant tree near Harkney Hill Road. The tree's outline is shown on some previous plans, but it's unclear if it is being preserved and or what protections may be used to preserve the tree. Seeking clarification on the total number of bedrooms per proposed per unit. Seeking clarification on the number of home ownership versus rental units proposed. And planning notes that the traffic study report submitted as part of the master plan application is still valid, as the number of units has been reduced and therefore no additional traffic review is warranted at this stage.
Thank you. And then I'll just make a note that the applicant has recently sent some follow-up information that addresses a few of these points. It doesn't change the comments that have been made, but in anticipation that they'll be addressed as part of this planning staff memo, the applicant indicated no problems to get us the conceptual renderings as we requested. That they're going to look into the pedestrian pathway, no immediate concerns, but we're going to investigate that. Each residential unit will have individual trash collection, which I assume is going to be provided as a private service.
Yes.
Yep. And that you're looking at 2 bedrooms per unit across all the units as your current design. And that when we did ask about the rental home ownership, you indicated the intent is home ownership with the chance that you may need to look at rentals specifically for the affordables if you're not having success in selling at the price with what the buyer's pool might be.
Yes.
So, and I mean, that's just basically just kind of making sure for the record, those are in general issues that we're going to address. The responses you've given will address as part of the staff report moving forward. So we do have information on some of these points.
And then you want me to clarify the rental? Is that appropriate here now? Because there won't be rental by choice. It's only in the event of the sell-through of the affordables.
Yeah.
That doesn't go as quickly as needed.
We can discuss it. It's not
Okay.
something I need you to give us any further information on right now.
Got it.
And yeah, we can further discuss what that looks like and what that means. I think what's important is that your intent is that there's going to be 100% home ownership
Yes,
with, wanting to explore rentals, and in that case that you actually can't sell the affordables, you'd need to rent the affordables.
that's correct.
It wouldn't change the fact that we've got the same number of affordables, and we can have a discussion about that.
If John can't, if they're not selling, he's gonna own them, so he can,
Yeah.
they're condominium units, he'll rent the condominium units, they'll have to be deed restricted. Affordables, and we'll have to follow the affordables for rentals. Little bit of a difference, home ownership can be up to 120% of area median
Yep.
household income.
Yep.
Rentals, 80%.
Yep.
But that would be part of the recorded deed restriction.
Yep.
restriction.
Yeah, and I think I understand that we could be heading towards a deed restriction or an approach that could accommodate either, but the intent right now is all home ownership across both the affordables and the regular units, with the intent of the affordables being home ownership at 120 with the opportunity or option to go rentals. And we're just confirming a question that we had on that with the Department of Housing, and we can talk about that as well, just to make sure that you have that optionality.
Yeah, I think the need certainly exists for both.
Yeah. No, I think I would tend to agree. I don't think I have a concern with that approach right off, but we want to just, we can talk a little more offline. I only provided that as context because the applicant in this case did give us further information that addressed some of the comments. And so with that being said, why don't we move on to Brown, if you don't mind reading your comments.
Yeah, sure. Coventry Crossing needs to meet NFPA fire flow requirements, building and hydrants. 2, fire access to include limiting dead ends. 3, if there are any cul-de-sacs, they must be sized to turn around fire apparatus. And 4, if it's a private development, they're responsible for the street lights, not the fire district.
Yeah. And my only caveat is that the intent right now is this is a 100% private development, private roads, private infrastructure on their site. So that is the intent here is.
We just want to cover street lights.
Yeah, and then help me out, the streetlights, were they shown on the plan, or is that a detail that we can address in further planning stages?
They are not shown, to be honest with you, so we have found, and I'll speak a little bit more to it, that they are not. Oftentimes not really desirable, they can add more light than, there's enough light from the development themselves. So, I think. Right now, it is not proposed to include them, if the town thinks it's important to have those elements, either aesthetically or for some other reason. Then we would address.
It is probably worth us addressing. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna give the chief an opportunity to reflect on that in a private setting. But we'll move on, and then that might be something we address after all the comments are on the table. And I mean, let's pick up things that you guys have a conversation point on, and then that way we can address after all the comments are on the table. I know some of these, you might be getting and reacting to for the first time, but
No.
if we can get on the same page, I'd like to. All right, Engineer Lebeck, if you have your comments.
So
please.
comments on the narrative. Due to the site's density, engineering supports the use of porous pavement in select areas. Engineering supports a minimum 24-foot roadway width, excluding the width of the bituminous berms. Engineering does not support the use of bituminous concrete sidewalks in lieu of concrete sidewalks. Preliminary plan set comments. Number 1, per zoning ordinance section 1207, trash collection area with screening is required for the commercial building. Please consider handicap access to the community mailbox. Per zoning ordinance section 1210C, loading space shall be 12 feet by 60 feet in length. Per subdivision reg, article 14D, install wheelchair ramps and sidewalk at every intersection in accordance with RIDOC standard 4332. Parking stalls should have concrete curbing or concrete car stops. Add a speed limit sign at the entrance to Road A and Road B. Add at least one additional speed limit sign on Road C and Road D within the site. Add proposed electric to the utility plans. Provide street lighting at all internal roadway intersections and parking areas. That was my thought on that. I had a question, could be a Kent County Water Authority thing. I was wondering if the above ground water service enclosure required vehicular access for servicing. I didn't see anything on that. Request that as-built plans for the stormwater management system, sewer system, and water system be submitted to the town of Coventry. Town of Coventry soil erosion and sediment control plan is required for this project. Soil erosion and sediment control narrative based upon the RIDEM standard template shall be submitted. Include a detail for the drains that are shown behind buildings 26, 27, 90. And then comments on the stormwater management report, section 3.3 proposed conditions. Paragraph states that the compensation area has been designed to discharge northeast to the Nooseneck Hill closed drainage system during storm events larger than the 100-year storm, in the same manner as the natural ponding areas overflow under existing conditions. With the recent history of short duration, high intensity rainfall events, I feel that is a high probability that there will be some discharge from that compensation area at some time. Engineering requests a call or meeting with the engineer of record to discuss the overall design of the compensation area and how design point 1 can adequately accept the overflow from this area without impact to adjacent properties. That's all I got.
All right, and then before we dive into any responses there, let's finish our comments from the police chief at this time.
So from what I understand, there was a traffic review that was already completed.
Yes.
And with that, state, DOT was incorporated into dialogue.
Yeah, DOT had seen the traffic study, I believe. And that the applicant had dialogue with DOT that generally, the applicant has relayed this to me verbally. Mr. Hemingway, in fact, when they submitted that they have reached design consensus with DOT on the ingress egress points and the turning lane movements off of that would be Harkney Hill onto the application. So they've reached consensus on the study because we had peer reviewed the traffic study at the last stage, and they've reached consensus, general consensus with RIDOT on the proposed state permitting aspect. Does that sound fair in your estimation?
Yeah,
Fred?
I mean, consensus, I think, would be the final agreement. We had a meeting and we talked about how we were gonna what resolution we're gonna propose, which in a meeting setting, they didn't object to. I'm not sure that they've gone through the nitty-gritty of the plan yet.
Okay, so it's fair to say that they're aware of your, you've addressed the comments you received from them.
Yep.
And your plan reflects those comments, and they've been able to see this plan, and you have not received to date any comments or concerns about this proposal. Okay,
And to kind of further everyone's information, only because it seems like an opportunity to do it. The primary concern out there was the intersection is the intersection. I think we all agree that there's not too much you can do. It's
Yeah, Harkney
intersection.
Hill
Oh, it has
and-
been?
and, yeah,
I'm sorry,
Newsnack
not
and
Harkney
Harkney,
Hill, it was next. But there was historically, there was an issue where people turning on Harkney Hill from Newsnack, their blinker, because it's a gentle curve, their blinker was not turning off. And it was causing confusion up the intersection because you just frankly it wasn't clear if they're intending on turning right or if they just didn't turn off the blinker. So in recognition of that, they suggested that we add a separated turn lane. The vehicle count is obviously much lower through the development than it is up at Maple Road, but it gives an opportunity so that you know, if you would left your blinker on, you would not pull into the right turn pocket, so that there was a way at least to anecdotally to distinguish between those two parties.
yeah. And
Not to say it's gonna solve the problem, but it certainly addressed that major safety concern.
all right, that being the case, Chief, do you have any kind of firm comments or?
We would have no comments at this time.
Okay, that's fair. So I think those are the comments that the
Did you want to
DOT
read,
has.
Public Works comment?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we should. Thank you for that, Alex. Public Works also provided comments on this project that I'll read at this time. This is, a lot of it jumps into specific comments on specific plan sheets. So I'm gonna read the plan sheet that each comment is on. Plan sheet C-1.1, the pedestrian crossing located on Harkney Hill Road should include an ADA compliant concrete sidewalk along the south side of Harkney Hill Road to extend to the rear parking area of the retail store at 2011 Newsnack Hill Road. This will alleviate placing pedestrians on the state roadway so close to a major intersection. Plan sheet C-2.2, what is the purpose of the sidewalk at the exit of the project on the west side that ties into nothing and leads pedestrians towards a turnout lane at Hill Farm Road? Next comment, plan sheet C-2.4, what is the purpose of the sidewalk at the exit of the project on the west side of Newsnack Road that ties into nothing and leads pedestrians towards a lane of travel towards Harkney Hill Road? Next comment, plan C-3.4, what is going to protect OWDS discharge field from an accident at the major intersection, possibly resulting in a catastrophic failure for the residents? Note, what are the comments of Kent County Water Authority regarding the potential location of the OWTS discharge field being located across the street from their underground Mishnock water aquifer servicing the drinking water for numerous ratepayers? Do the geotechnical reports, water table analyses, and soil composition types guarantee the safety of the drinking water supply? Next comment, C-4.3 BMP number 2 has a 50-foot spillway that empties towards the existing homes on Wood Cove Drive. The BMP has an elevation of 251 feet to 253 feet, a 2-foot difference, and will most likely cause a flooding situation for those homes The town is currently experiencing this type of drainage issue with another development affecting abutters. Let's not repeat this mistake. Last one, Plan L 2.0. All Acer species should not be allowed within 10 feet of any pavement / walks, as they are a top-rooted tree which causes safety issues as the roots push through. Those are the Department of Public Works' comments on the application at this point. I'd like to open it up for responses from the applicant. We'll take notes. Some of these responses we may be incorporating into our staff review. We'll be providing a staff report on this in the next couple of days, so we'll have an opportunity to hear you out. You can also choose to follow up with me after the meeting. Really, you can provide direct responses to this. In any event, we will address any information you give us as part of the staff report that will be put on the record and for the consumption of the planning commission for the ultimate decision that they may make next week. One piece here is there's a lot of comments on seeking further details, and I think it's important to divide what are details that could be provided at a future stage of review, like a final plan, and what are details that we may need to see as heading into this preliminary plan hearing next week. For example, on the planning's comments, I can say, we'd like to see the document requested, which is a narrative to give us background on where you stand with state status, which could be as simple as what Sam just provided, the back and forth history that occurred with RIDOT. We'd love to hear that kind of information on the other state permitting agencies. You know, are you submitted? Have you received initial comments? Have there been any back and forth? That'd be something that we would like to see and reflect upon in our staff report. So if there's an ability to turn around that information to us in the next couple of days, we'd like to reflect on that in the staff report.
Now, there was a summary provided, is that the intent is to expand on that?
Where you can, as it's specific to the current status with the state permit specifically. And where you might feel like the summary provides it, you know, let us know where you might have already provided that. I think we're looking for, you know, what's the status submitted? Have you received comments? If so, how have those comments been addressed? You don't need to necessarily respond to each one point by point.
Yeah,
I know, Joe, you had a handful of comments. Some of them are more technical in nature, and some of them were probably intended to say, I'm looking for this piece of information at some point. I guess I'm curious, you know, if there's certain comments, I'd like to see this addressed before the planning commission's hearing next week. And I don't know, one that jumped out from both fire and from engineering was this idea of streetlights. So I think we should probably discuss that. And what is the potential and what is the approach we can discuss there. Another one is, I mean, I think, you know, Joe indicated looking for a change of materials on the sidewalks, if that's a comment that the applicant wants to respond to, or if you're generally in agreement with. Some of them might be fine if we're in agreement. We may not need a plan change. We just need to know, is that something that we need to address in a substantive level, or is it something that's going to be a plan change that we're all comfortable with at a future stage? If that makes sense. So some of these issues may range things that we should get into to understand, or if they're things that we're comfortable with and we'll address on a future plan. Does that make sense? So with that being said, I'm going to allow you guys to jump into issues that you may want to address, responses you may wish to make now. And again, you can also follow up with me via email on any of the information received.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to some of it, and Sam can. I mean, the streetlights, I mean, they're not proposed. We've done developments bigger than this without streetlights. We had no issue when somebody here lives in a development that we did that. Not opposed to them. I wouldn't want them littered throughout the project. I did one recently where the residents on a regular single family development pushed back to try to have them omitted. We put the stands in and then they fought with a grid on it. But at the intersections, if there's a town desire to see them there for safety purposes, not opposed to it. We've done some with their solar powered projects in Mass. They were more than effective. So they're a little less cumbersome, can be placed after the fact. It doesn't have to be part of your electrical design. So I guess the best answer is where, if the people here feel it's a safety concern, I'm not sure, you know, the reason, but if the intersection was one of the main, you know, larger concerns here, we're not opposed to doing it. I just would not want to see an excess amount of them. And then there's a dark side, you know, the dark sky compliant and everything else. And the people directly around those lights typically don't want to see them, but if they have to be there, they have to be there.
Yeah, I think right now the comment is looking for them at internal roadway intersections and parking areas. I mean, you don't have numerous parking areas, and some of them are close to your roadway intersections as well. I think Joe's comment is probably aimed at some degree of public safety, pedestrians, but also roadway safety. Chief, normally, streetlights with their municipal is in the domain of fire. This would not be in his domain, but if you want to speak to your comfort with that approach.
I agree with what Joe wrote. And if you kind of look at development, you're probably talking 5 lights.
Yeah.
You know, so. you know,
Yeah.
I think they need to be at intersections and parking areas.
Thank you. So that would be our understanding and general expectation, and it's something that I think we could live with as on the plan at the final plan stage, understanding that we may be headed to a condition of approval as part of this stage to add them as had been commented here. And I'm comfortable with that approach. In general, keep in mind all streetlights will be dark sky compliant. So it's a means for public safety without over lighting the site or its surrounding areas. Anything else from your perspective you wanted to address at this time?
Yeah, there was, I mean, one,
We got time, Dan. It'll be part of the next one. This is TRC.
Look at this group of people.
This is TRC. We're doing Coventry crossings right now, but we'll get into the 2 o'clock pretty soon.
Excellent.
Yep, there you go.
Thanks, yeah.
the major one, I'd like to address is one of the last comments of that you've read. Was that idea of us not flooding the neighborhood next door. Just want to really expand on that and say, obviously, we cannot exacerbate the problem, but it was well documented in all the public meetings that those folks are experiencing a significant flooding problem now. I just want to make sure it's, you know, well documented and understood that obviously there is an issue there already. I clearly don't want that same issue to be considered our problem after the fact, that we're well aware we cannot make it any worse.
Yep.
I just do want to clarify that it sounded as if we can't create that issue that, like I said, is very clear that they've expressed there's a major problem already. Our hope is we can mitigate that, but I certainly don't want to be looked at as having caused what is otherwise an existing condition.
No, I think that the way to think about this is that, you know, we don't have the results of the DEM, used to be a RIPDs. I think they call it a general construction permit now. I'm curious, you know, if you've gotten where you've gotten so far with your DEM permitting. I do think that we can only hold you to the standard that you can't increase off-site runoff. That's the standard that we hold you to, but I think that the DPW director is, I think, just bringing up that there are flooding issues in the area. We don't wish to exacerbate. We want to take a good hard look at that. His comments seem to be focused on this, perhaps, it's not clear to me, and he's not here to speak to it, but this, and we can speak offline, but there needs to be better definition, that he's seeing a discrepancy between 251 feet and 253, a 2-foot difference that will cause flooding. So I'm curious to hear about that.
Yep.
Some of the technical pieces of this, if it's better to handle, you know, with a specific closer look at specific spot elevations, there could have been a misinterpretation of some of this. Again, whatever you provide, we're gonna wrap into our analysis as part of the staff report for the committee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of just sort of say there's been a couple fairly, what I would consider to be fairly significant changes since this thing came before you, master plan.
Yep.
Changed pretty drastically in master plan.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, the first was the indoor recreation in the field and the parking associated with that. But then we advanced the drainage and looked harder at it, and it pretty significantly expanded the area, the portion of the site that we're not putting new development in.
Yep.
So that there was a cul-de-sac, if you may or may not recall, at least on the plan east side initially. There was pretty considerably a larger amount of impervious area that was proposed. So we took both of those areas. Our primary intent has always been to somewhat separate. There's a naturally occurring recharge area on this property. It's been there, been documented for years. It's pretty clear. If you go out there, there's a couple of low depressions. They're getting a lot of water from the neighbors. They're getting a lot of water directly from the sky. They're getting water from DOT. We have attempted to separate the watershed areas so that we can document full compliance of this project to the standards, so that we have expanded. There are areas where there are adjacencies, so where our stormwater management is put right up against areas that are naturally occurring low areas. We've increased the separation from those. And that's where we've introduced that with the specific where they talk about. I haven't looked at, but I just saw this down when I got here. But I'm confident that's the area that's talking about. That was purposeful. That was us saying that we can absolutely look at the amount of runoff generated by this development, by these houses, and what we're doing to mitigate that. And we've done pretty considerable improvements to try and address that. But the portion of the property, which is, that lower area, and it bleeds a little bit into the DPW comment about what happens catastrophic, like the things just fail. Ultimately, the water, where there's nothing happened on this property, goes down to that low end of the site, and then it's going to find its way, frankly, across some of the backyards of those neighborhoods, through that retention pond that was associated with that adjacent neighborhood, and under or potentially over the highway and across and down to the, so obviously it's a very, very nearly level, large watershed area with it's a lot, but it is a reservoir recharge area. Right, so they are complicated rules, and we have made a sincere attempt to make betterment and do it in a way that we can document exactly what's going on. I'm happy to sit with them deep as technically as anybody wants to get into it. We 100% stand by the design intent, what we're trying to do there, and also recognize that what's a 100-year storm, right? That seems to be happening every 6 months now. That there is a provision that says that's what we designed to, was 100 years, but there are conditions that don't follow that exact plan. So that what's going to happen is very similar to what happens now. That if we got 14 inches of rain tomorrow, something would happen. And it would go down that area, and it would probably flood the road, and it would likely go under, where we can't change that.
Now, we understand that the standard you're held to is that you can't increase offsite runoff. That doesn't mean that the site doesn't currently have some level of offsite runoff, but
Right.
your project can't increase that. My suggestion is this is a highly technical issue, and I know one of the comments is that our engineer is looking to have a direct discussion with
Yep.
you to hear, a little bit more in detail. I'd only just say, I'd love to advance those discussions in the next few days if we can, because we're going to be in a position where we'd like to reflect on where that stands.
I realized I didn't really touch on kind of what has happened. So right now, drainage is under the umbrella of wetland. So it's been somewhat complicated. The most significant, it certainly has gone through 2 rounds of engineering drainage review. But more critically, the small pond that was constructed in the 80s, maybe mid-90s. It's actually a lined pond.
Oh, really? It's lined?
Yeah, it's got rubber underneath it. The state has indicated that is now acting as a vernal pool. So that it's getting species that have moved in there that rely on that water source. Based on that, the separation that was required from that increased from 25 feet to 100 feet. So that changed that area, and it actually changed how we address some of the overflows. But we have, based on that, we had to resubmit and reapply to the drainage group over there. We're confident that we met with them, had a long and good discussion with them, came to what we think are resolutions that are, again, similar to DOT, are back on the plans and back in front of them. We don't have.
Well, and part of it is that we'd love to understand your history of the
Yep.
back and forth with the state agencies. That informs us on the design issues you've already begun to address. And in general, I'd say, a direct conversation I would encourage with the engineer, by tomorrow. We'll rely on our engineer to potentially provide us with additional follow-up that we'll reflect on in our staff memo and our staff report if we can get there. And I'd like to just know that we've gotten to a point where we feel comfortable with the design. And that overall, there's evidence that what you're doing is going to meet the state standards and ultimately the DEM permitting. And a little more history and background there so we can understand it, I think could help a lot in the next few days as we consider our planning staff.
We're gonna pick a time right now.
Yeah, I got it back to back this afternoon, but, we'll,
But
Let's-
we will make ourselves
Yeah.
available anytime that works.
okay, yeah,
You
we'll,
know, if I'm not there, certainly.
I'll touch base with you and
Okay.
we'll set up a time.
Thanks. Any other items that you guys thought were worth addressing now?
And, you know, we did offline and I might at least float the ones that is called, that is, concrete sidewalks, so.
Yep.
There are advantages to private sidewalks, particularly through sequencing and the proximity, but I recognize long-term concrete is also has.
there's- Numerous reasons. One, I like the durability of concrete. I like the slip resistance of concrete. And it creates less of a heat island effect, the concrete. And aesthetically, I just think it's a lot better. Once asphalt starts to crack, it just, I don't know, I don't like it. I'll work with planning and I'm sure we can come to an agreement, but those are my reasons why I don't like them.
Yeah, I recognize that. I think that on the flip side is.
And I
it's the
understand,
maintenance,
yeah.
so when you have a maintenance budget that's sort of town-wide and you can address the sidewalks, when joints buckle, it's much more cumbersome on
Mhm.
a small section of asphalt that can easily be repaired. So I think private maintenance where you're not set up for public works kind of operation, there are advantages.
Mhm.
But I think you need to have it all line.
Yeah, can we-
It's a yes or
Can we
no.
come back to that? if we-
Yeah, and the comment that we're speaking of, engineering does not support the use of bituminous concrete sidewalks and move, I'm sorry, bituminous concrete sidewalks and move concrete sidewalks. Happy for you guys to address it. I think that certainly there's room for discussion, but at the end of the day, this is the comment that we're gonna relay at TRC. So it's really having the follow-up address that comment.
Okay.
And we'll rely on our engineer, his perspectives on that, to help guide our decision makers. But I can understand both sides of that. And perhaps we can have a further flesh that out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, fine.
All right. Any other pieces that at this point you guys wanted to get any reaction to, have a discussion of? Or, just pick up the rest of it offline and then I'll be looking to, for you guys. To address with us any of the things that planning did. Obviously, there's an offline conversation with the engineer. We'll be relaying with the engineer where he stands. In general, I'd love to be able to button all these things up by the middle of the day on Wednesday. So we don't have a lot of time, but our staff report goes out on Thursday. And I'd really like to be able to relay where we stand and the status of where we stand, will, I think, be important to reflect for our decision makers. If we need to, and there's a few things that, need to get addressed late in the day on Wednesday, we can, but I'd really like to get ahead of these things by that date. Does that sound, so it's aggressive, but that gets us to a point where we can have some good information to reflect on for the staff report.
Yeah, I think we can take care of that.
Okay.
A little tight, but
Yeah.
just gonna get to work.
There you go. Yeah. Sam, you're used to that.
Yeah, Sam doesn't have much going on, so. we can-
Any other questions? Comments from the applicant team at this point? Any other comments from the TRC members at this point? That being the case, our review of the Coventry Crossings matter is complete. The only other item on the agenda is adjournment, so I do consider this meeting of the TRC adjourned at 2:13 PM. Thank you very much. Yep. I'm gonna see if, mind turning off our recording? I'm gonna see if Mr. Shevlin is out there.